Welcome to the 2022 Trent University Alumni Lecture, Leading by Example, the Importance of Value-Driven Leadership in Our Ever-Evolving Technical World. I'm your host, Donald Fraser of Trent University Alumni Engagement and Services, and throughout the past year, we've taken the opportunity to recognize our 2021 Trent University Alumni Award recipients as part of a series of online and in-person events. And today, we're proud to present an extended conversation with two of our Distinguished Alumni Award recipients, Anita Erskine and Ken Hartwick. I'm truly honored to welcome them both today. Anita Erskine, class of '99, graduated Trent with a Bachelor of Arts in Cultural Studies. And since her time at Trent, Anita has risen to the forefront of the African broadcast industry to become a powerful voice seasoned by experience as well as talent and aimed at uplifting and inspiring women around the world. Since 2003, Anita has been the managing director of Anita Erskine Media. The company is a multifaceted consultancy designed to develop and execute a very specific strategy called the Africa Will Rise and Tell Her Story strategy, in hopes of driving the ultimate agenda of empowering people and showcasing products and marketing services of African origin, both on the continent and in the diaspora. Anita has been the recipient of numerous awards, including Power Influencer in Ghana, Female Radio Host of the Year, TV Hostess of the Year, TV Female Entertainment Host of the Year, and the 100 Most Influential Women in Africa. She's actively placed her advocacy for entrepreneurship, girls' education, and women in leadership at the core of her media career. And Anita has a special focus on developing content that showcases innovative solutions to Africa's socioeconomic challenges. In her shows, for example, Sheroes of Our Time, Making of a Mogul, Anita has constantly highlighted young African entrepreneurs, both on the continent and around the world, who are fueled by their innate desire to find homegrown solutions to the continent's socioeconomic challenges. Ken Hartwick, class of '81, graduated Trent with a degree in business administration and comes from a proud Trent family with 3 generations of Trent experience. Ken has had a tremendous amount of involvement as a proud Trent volunteer, which includes serving as chair of Trent's most successful fundraising campaign to date and serving as a member of Trent's Board of Governors. Since 2019, Ken has been president and CEO of Ontario Power Generation, one of the most diverse electricity generators in North America. And Ken has played a strong leadership role since joining OPG in 2016. As Chief Financial Officer and Senior Vice President of Finance, he led all operations under the finance portfolio, including strategy and risk management. Under Ken's leadership, OPG launched Canada's first utility green bond. They expanded into the US through the acquisition of Eagle Creek Renewable Energy and initiated an energy storage partnership. Ken has been pivotal in helping the company lead the way in the industry by setting precedents regarding climate change and clean energy. And this includes expanding OPG's hydroelectric fleet, upgrading existing assets to improve efficiency, and investing in alternative power. Under Ken's leadership at OPG in 2020, the company was the recipient of the Canadian Electricity Association's Sustainability Award for their strong commitment to external collaboration and partnerships with Indigenous peoples, local communities, and other stakeholders. And they were the recipients of the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce Sustainability Award in 2019. I'm proud to welcome 2 of our Distinguished Alumni Award recipients, Anita Erskine and Ken Hartwick. And I'd like to take this moment and allow them to introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Anita. Welcome to the Alumni Lecture.
All right, I shall go first. So hi, everyone. You've done a fantastic introduction. There's nothing more to say other than I am a total Trent being. Trent is in my DNA. I strongly believe that this kind of opportunity, really attending Trent University, allowing myself to immerse myself in the powerful cultural mix of the university has been one of the main reasons I'm here today. I'm proudly Trent because Trent really did hold my hand. If Trent were a human being, I would have said Trent held my hand that first day when I got off, the Greyhound bus in Peterborough. and Trent really did welcome me into its very warm, arms, even though it was a rather chill fall September morning. Very proud to be here, very proud to be able to have this conversation. And I think that it is African time, and it is also time to see how a university as small as Trent University can be so powerful and have such an impact on so many African lives, using me as a primary example. Happy to be here.
Thank you, Anita. And Ken, welcome.
Thanks. And same thing, I want to echo my thanks to the university, but really when I heard Anita's background and what's been accomplished, it makes me more proud to be a Trent alumni, because it's I think, Anita, what you've done is remarkable, and I know you're not done doing things. So it's I think just a great testament to what people can set out to do, and what a university, and I agree with your comments, a small university, but it packs a big punch. And I think that's what all of us sort of take away from our time at Trent. But very, very honored to be here. Very, very honored for the recognition. And I really want to congratulate Anita on accomplishing things that are truly remarkable, and things that make all of us proud, and proud to call Trent University home. Thank you.
And thank you, Ken. I think it's safe to say that everyone watching here today is proud of you both. Now let's get to it. I want to start by talking about your Trent experiences. You're both Trent alumni, and while there's no doubt that your successes are due to your own drive and ingenuity, I'm wondering if you still feel that your time at Trent has helped with these successes. Ken, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it did. And when I think of my time at Trent, and one of the takeaways I have is it's a small university. And what it gave me when I look at it was a chance to interact with faculty in a very different manner than I found some of my colleagues at other universities did. And that interaction, the ability to talk to one of the faculty, talk or debate an answer question with a professor, I think actually gave me a level of confidence that let me go out into the business world at the time and begin to do things very differently. So it's sort of funny. You often think, come from a big university, you come away with more confidence, but I found it was the exact opposite. And I think it's because the interaction that I was able to have in the business school was so unique. And maybe it was when you're sitting with 6 or 7 people in a room during one of the break-off sessions, you had to be more of a participant than others. So, but that was a real benefit at Trent, and something that let me, I think, develop an ability to deal with more senior people more quickly than what I might have otherwise.
Excellent. Anita, same question.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I mean, today the world is prioritizing conversations about equality, diversity, inclusivity. But I proudly say that I remember in 1999, when I got to Trent University, this was the Trent culture. When the International Programs Office, kind of welcomed myself and, my colleague students on that day when we were coming from different parts of Africa, it brought us into a place where we learned to understand each other, even more so than when we were on the continent. We learned to understand each other's languages, not just in terms of what we were saying, but just in terms of how each and everyone was thinking. And Trent taught us the power of accepting someone else's culture and the importance of allowing different people to the table. So as someone who is indigenously African, traveling across the world to Canada, finding myself in a small town called Peterborough, and then in a university called Trent, what that experience did teach me was it doesn't matter where it is you are in the world. You should adapt. You should listen to people. You should learn from people. And these are the very important lessons I took away from Trent University. I mean, I look at my bio today and I say, well, you know what? Thank God I have all these, I guess, successes, etc. But none of them is an isolation of the important teachings, the foundation that I received at Trent University: women's studies, marketing studies, English, French, Spanish, all of it beautifully mixed in this pot of extraordinary wisdom that Trent gave to me. And so, honestly, I don't think that I can have a conversation about success without bringing the importance of what Trent did to grow the personality that I am today.
Thank you, Anita. And it's fascinating to hear someone talk about Trent, not just as being new to Trent, but being new to Canada and being new to this culture. Kind of gives insight into a situation that a lot of us probably don't have. But it also makes me curious. It makes me curious as to how you remember your time at Trent. Are there any particular memories that come to mind? Anita, and then Ken.
I became the president of the International Students Association in 2000, and it was comprised of, more than 100 individuals from different parts of the continent. And this experience sticks with me because it was the first time I had to learn the art of listening to people from different places. And I also had to learn the art of not stereotyping individuals that I thought were from different parts of, the continent. A lot of people do think that Africa is one country, but Africa is, 54 countries that form the continent. And this diversity is what I became part of, when I was president of the International Students Association. And the importance of also learning to put everyone on the same pedestal and really respecting everyone's cultural backgrounds is something that truly remains a light in my mind and truly guards and guides how I navigate career and personal wise as I live, on the continent.
Yeah, and for me, sort of it's interesting. One of my best memories of Trent actually had nothing to do with me. So it was our middle child, our daughter, started off at a bigger university in a science program, and then didn't like the bigger environment and switched to Trent. And after her second lecture, she phoned me that evening and said it was great. My professor called me by name and asked me a question. And that just made me proud. It's sort of, if you think about it, that's sort of 25 years later, Trent to me had maintained the same sort of theme and how it operated. And it made me proud that my daughter was there, and made me proud for what the university had done while I was a student there, and what they continued to do. And so that memory just sticks with me. And it really does describe to me what it feels like to have been at Trent and to be a grad of Trent, which makes it easy to brag about Trent.
I love multi-generational Trent stories. So thank you for that. Now, leadership. Leadership has been a hallmark of both your careers. Tell me a bit about the characteristics that you think all leaders should possess. Ken?
Sure. So maybe for me, there are two, and there are two pieces of advice I give a lot of people is be incredibly curious. I find it's and Anita, I can tell by the way you've described the way you've built your career and all the things you've done. You have to be curious as to how everything works, why people are the way they are, why countries are the way they are, why everything is the way it is. Because if you're curious, you have this incredible desire to learn. And if you're curious and you want to learn, your mind is open all of a sudden, and open to, maybe not have as many biases, that we might have in normal course of our life. And this is something I see in young people that work in and around where I do, is that the ones that are really curious, they want to learn, their minds are open, they tend to solve amazing problems, and you can never figure out why. You have two people who are equally as smart, and one just seems to solve these things because their mind is just more open to business things, social things. So I often think that be curious and want to learn, and you'll be amazed what happens.
Curiosity, an openness for learning, and lifelong learning. These are hallmarks of a Trent education. It's in our motto. Now we know in part. Now I know in part. And then you keep on learning for the rest of your lives. It's wonderful. Okay, leadership. Anita, tell me a bit about how you view leadership.
I think a true leader is the chief executive servant, the one who truly um, isn't worried about how little the job has to be done, the one who isn't too proud to go right down to the grassroots to change some minds, change some cultures. And I find that, I mean, in this era, in this COVID pandemic where everyone's hands need to be on the table, that a leader really should show the way, should show people how one particular thing or another has to be done. I mean, I don't think that the term leadership by example is as frivolous as people might mention it or people might say it. So I find that leaders or leadership really truly is about your dedication to serving the people, and you're showing how the people, the target, the consumers, whoever it is, have to be served as an example to the people behind you who are really either walking behind you and following you or looking up to you for the inspiration to do things the right way. That's what leadership is to me.
You talk about the people, and in 2022, the people are a pretty diverse crew. Tell me about your aspirations for inclusion and diversity.
Again, Trent University really did spoil me. I'm a graduate or student. So very early on, as that teenager that walked onto the campus of Trent University, I learned the importance of being a woman, understanding the value of my voice, and also giving other women an opportunity to voice their concerns, and even lifting and elevating other women who may not be as powerful or who may not even know their power enough to ask to be represented. For me, equality, diversity, and inclusion I think that it is, what's the word? It is non-negotiable. Okay, not just with my business, but it's non-negotiable with any space that I walk into. And it's crucial that we help women find the necessary voice that empowers them to do what it is that they need to do effectively.
Okay, Ken,
Yeah,
same question.
I could not agree with you more that it is a non-negotiable part of every business and our personal lives. I think it needs to go into both. But from a business standpoint, and where Ontario Power is that, first of all, I don't think the problem most of the time, definitely at our company, is all that difficult. I think what's made it difficult is just a total lack of commitment by people to actually achieve all three elements of ED&I. And this is something where more people have to express it exactly like Anita said. It's non-negotiable. We're going to be successful. Every single person in the workplace, in the social circles we live in, are going to feel like they are part of it. And I've used an expression a few times that we need a lot more round tables and a lot less rectangular ones. And because the minute you have a round table, everyone feels like they are equal at the table. Everyone feels like they're participating in the conversation. If you have a rectangular table, there's a boss sitting at one end, a boss sitting at the other end, and it just doesn't work. And that round table doesn't have to be the physical table. It has to be how we think. Because I say to a lot of people, I've yet to come up with a good idea. There's lots of people who work with me that come up with amazing ones. And you just have to facilitate the conversation and then be shocked at how quickly great things happen.
Okay, Ken, you're already talking about inclusion here, but I want to widen the net a little bit. Women are making up a larger share of the workforce in many industries, but they're still underrepresented at the top. And the gender wage gap, it persists. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on why this persists and how to address it?
So, maybe I'll start at our company. One of the biggest disservices that was done, there's a concept out there of equal by 30. So, and I think this was done maybe 2 years ago. So it was going to take 11 or 12 years to get to women to be equal representation among Canadian businesses. I'm just thinking, why isn't it equal now? that setting these targets so far out and seems so unnecessary. Unnecessary in the fact that it should be something that we achieve equality with women today. And that's something at OPG, basically half of our senior management team are now women, and they're all there not because they're women. They're there because they deserve to be at that round table. So I think we need to look well past excuses and others, definitely from a Canadian context, and just say there's a problem, there's a inequity, injustice, whatever you want to call it, that can be solved now. Let's get on with solving it, and every business will be better off because of it. And there's anyone who says it takes till 2030 probably is just waiting for themselves to retire so they don't have to deal with it.
Ken for president. Okay, you know what? I think that there aren't enough women in positions of power or women in the C-suite. Not because women are not qualified or not because people can't find the right women, but because, and I can speak from a cultural perspective for a minute. When you grow up in a certain culture, your role as a woman or as a girl is not to take center stage, is to to sit backstage. But I look at the girls in communities that I work at, or communities that I work in societies that I work in, and I look at these girls eventually becoming the women at the table, at the C-suite, if we prioritize their education, if we prioritize their access to basic needs, if we highlight how cool STEM is, if we endorse their passion for science, if we encourage them to break through the technology industry, glass ceiling, for all I care. So it is essential that we understand that these girls we're talking about are the women of tomorrow. So it's important that we remove we remove the categorization of girls can only do, the arts, or, the arts are easier for the girls. And we highlight how important that girls should be encouraged themselves to push harder. In a conversation that I have with a group of women, or a conversation I had with a group of women not too long ago, the conversation was also about how uncomfortable women feel, the C-suite, it's a boys club, etc. And my argument was this: listen, if from an African perspective, your great grandmother had to struggle to dream about it, and then your grandmother, had to dream and then struggle to raise her hand to put herself at the table, but you have an opportunity to be at the table, why worry how many men are at the table? Why don't you find that seat? Why don't you get comfortable in that seat? And why don't you find an opportunity for the next woman who can have a seat at the table? So it's a varied conversation. But the bottom line for me, from where I sit, is how do we get our girls to aspire to do more, aspire to be more, and to let them see that it's normal to break the glass ceiling?
Okay. You knew that we were going to have to address this at some point, the pandemic, COVID-19. How has COVID changed business? The environment, the office, the employees? Anita.
When I realized that I could have international conversations via various platforms, StreamYard or Zoom, I jumped for joy. Albeit the fear of how COVID-19 was changing everything. But COVID-19 taught my team and I the importance of moving quickly and the importance of being prepared, even if, listen, COVID-19 beats all our wildest imaginations. I tell you, nobody could have ever imagined this sort of thing. But it talks to how prepared we are in crises situations, or how comfortable we are when we seem to be doing well. So for me, the major lesson that I learned from COVID-19 is you should be able on a daily basis to think outside the box. You should be the kind of business owner that pushes your team to think outside the box. And you should also be the kind of business owner who is always prepared for any kind of situation. I work in communications, and for the first time, I saw how many companies in the telecommunication industry, in the beverage industry, whatever it is, how few of them really had a crisis communications plan. So that's what COVID-19 taught me. How ready are you when, when things are falling apart? And how adaptable are you to situations? Are you ready to think outside the box and make necessary changes?
Yeah, and it's interesting from at OPG almost Anita, to pick up on your comments, is we almost transitioned into COVID without a hitch. We run big nuclear plants, so we have crisis plans and all these types of things, which made it a relatively easy transition. But I'd say for me, there was two learnings I picked up from it. One is the mental health impact of COVID is it just sort of brought that to the forefront, as far as the stress it introduced on our employees, on their families, on the extended families, and it made it real. And all of us, I think, and I'll speak for myself, you can be somewhat dismissive of mental health issues, but they're real. And I started to see more of it. And what it did for me was maybe raise my level of empathy with regards to not just employees and people I work with, but also then into the social circles that I'm part of, my family, my friends, etc. And it really caused me to step back and say, look, you just have to recognize the different issues. If kids can't go to school and they have to be at home, and the stress that puts on a parent that's trying to work, maybe it's a single parent, maybe it's two parents with busy jobs, and just to start to say, okay, we have to work differently. And the second part of this was that on the positive side, it gave us a real chance to be more innovative in the way we worked, in who we talked to, who we met with, how we met with them. And that's been a real positive that I think we've actually gotten better at it. Now, as good as we've gotten at it or better at it, I'm still keen for COVID to become less of a thing. But there's lots of learnings here, both in how we manage our business side as well as our personal lives that I think were great learnings for me.
For a lot of people, COVID has shifted the workplace. People are working remotely, they're working from home. In your view, does this help or hinder women as they're advancing in their careers? Ken?
Yeah, my view would be a little bit of both. So, certainly the flexibility, the whatever model people, I think we'll ultimately go to, 3 in the office, 2 at home, different models depending on the situation. So that I think is more flexible, which then will accommodate more people. I think on the side I worry a little bit more about is, a lot of our learning experiences are interactions. It's a collaboration. It's meeting somebody new, like I'm learning today from Anita and the experiences. And some of this I do worry for, I'm going to say, our younger people, younger in their careers, that it might impair their learning ability a little bit. So I think it's just something we all have to be cognizant of. I don't think we can change it because there just need to be more focus on how our younger people, and women and men, learn so that they can accelerate as great innovators as we move forward.
I think Ken has literally just hit it so hard on the head. I mean, I love being able to communicate with you from Africa, across Asia to North America, on a daily basis. I do absolutely appreciate that. But again, I selfishly look at where I've come from, the over 20 years experience I've had physically traveling around the world, meeting people from different places, and how that has enriched my life. I tend to worry, as Ken said, that even though communication is so easy, very much like we're having right now, I mean, that we cannot be in the same place doesn't stop us from doing what it is that we're doing. But I find that this new normal takes away from that ability to boldly network, if I may put it that way. I've just come from working on a project that brought all the corners of Africa together. It's called the Africa's Business Heroes Competition, run by the Jack Ma Foundation. And for the first time, I stood by myself as a host in a room filled with nobody but cameras. 5, 6, 7 cameras, having conversations with human beings around the world. Technology is a beautiful thing, but technology and what it presents can also be so lonely, so cold. And so that is what it takes away from us, the ability to have a human interaction. But hey, when life throws you lemons, make a cocktail is what we're doing right now. But yes, indeed, I do worry about this new generation of young people who may miss out on the ability of having that human interaction, which is a gift in itself.
Okay, so you bring up lemons and cocktails, and I'm wondering what kind of beverage we can make from this. Climate change. Climate change is perhaps the world's greatest challenge alongside COVID-19 right now, and requires unprecedented levels of international cooperation. And inequality makes this much more difficult. For example, at COP26, Guyana indicated that while they want to see fossil fuel usage decrease, they see no choice but to exploit their own fossil fuel deposits in order to continue developing. And they ask why they should be required to give up wealth, and when other countries have exploited and continue to exploit the same damaging sources of income. Given your different perspectives, what do you see as the path forward? Anita.
I paid attention to our various, leaders, world leaders having a conversation at, COP26. And I do have to say that even though that conversation was happening at that level, it's absolutely crucial that we bring that conversation to this level, to the grassroots. I come from a part of the world that is rich in nature, forests, nature abound. But I also come from a part of the world where farmers or anyone who has access to these forests would sooner cut it down for their daily bread today than think about the impact that cutting down a tree would have on their community. I do think that it is absolutely crucial to bring that conversation down to the grassroots to help people see what they are already feeling that they may not even know is a result of climate change. I think it's important to bring that conversation to our schools, public or private, to teach tomorrow's leaders how they can impact our decisions that we have made that are indeed, or we thought were necessary evils, if you want to put it that way. Because I am big on education, I say that children have to understand the importance of climate change and having that conversation. They have to understand the importance of, or teachers have to understand the importance of prioritizing this. So it just cannot be about mathematics in our schools. It cannot be just about English literature. Climate change, for how crucial it is, for how important it is to us, also has to be a conversation that is had at schools. And that's my humble opinion.
Yeah, Anita, I agree with you entirely. And then, part of what I think is we need to start to think about climate change. And, everyone has the NIMBY, expression, not in my backyard. It's great that Canada has a really clean starting point for its, power system. Ontario, for instance, is 94% non-carbon emitting. But we can't think like that. I think it's actually a mistake by our politicians. It's a mistake by business leaders. We have to think about this as a threat everywhere in the world. Everyone has a different starting point. And to your point around a farmer, they're trying to, do their farming. They're trying to make a living. And applying a Canadian thought process is almost what we talked about earlier around ED&I. It makes no sense to that person on the ground. And countries, especially the developed world, needs to stop thinking around how they make themselves look good and start thinking about how they do something that is beneficial to the world on the climate front. And I'll give you an example. We can put the next $1 billion into cleaning up the Canadian power system, and that will make Canada a little bit cleaner. It will help climate change carbon a little bit. $1 billion spent in Guyana. Now, I've never been there, so I don't know the country, my guess would be so impactful, whether it's from education, whether it is from perhaps other forms of power beyond fossil fuels, would be so impactful. We need to start thinking like that, because otherwise you get into this very, very narrow-minded thinking that let's just solve my problem, even though that is not solving the problem. And this is where I think governments, and why I'm a little bit disappointed when I see some of the stuff coming out of COP, that it never really goes very far to say, how do we treat this as a world problem that we collectively, 7 billion people, need to rally around, educate, and solve. And we have a lot of work to do there. I'm also an optimist, so I actually believe that as a group of people, we will get there. It's just frustratingly slow.
Okay, let's change gears here for a second. You both impact and are impacted by many people and organizations. Tell me a bit about your stakeholders.
Yeah, this is a very broad question, and it's probably different for every business and every venture that there is. But stakeholders, we talk about our Indigenous peoples. They're a stakeholder. We're on their land in Canada, and need to be respectful of that. You go across government policymakers, you go customers, you go our employees, but I think increasingly. What we need to think about is back to what Anita and I just talked about a few minutes ago, is when you think about climate change, who is the stakeholder in that? All of us are. And we need to really take the time to ensure we understand why countries and people in countries can and can't do certain things. And it goes back to the starting point of, is it a developed, rich country? Is it a developing country, et cetera? And so start to think more like this, because I can't really think of a single business activity that we do at OPG that doesn't need to look and say, what is happening elsewhere in the world? And it's important to know. It's important to try to continually educate ourselves as to what it is. So for me, stakeholders, there are so many of them. It's hard to do a list, but I think that's how we need to think about it.
Okay, Anita, same question.
I'll look at it from one perspective of what I do, and that is to have a voice loud and wild enough to influence policy that helps to make the world a better place for girls and women. So in that regard, my stakeholders are these girls, these women in business, girls in school, women in leadership, but also the media, politicians, governments, anyone who has a platform to help to amplify conversations around empowering women, anyone who has a platform to influence the change of policy that helps girls access education easier, and anyone who really has the magic pen, I'd like to call it a magic wand, to sign a check that puts more girls into school or that builds more schools, is for me who my major stakeholder is. As far as being able to use my voice and my personality as a broadcast journalist or as a media professional, etc., I would say that these pockets of people are my major stakeholders.
Okay, looking at your organizations and the work that you do, how important is ESG? Or the goals of environmental, social, and governance criteria?
Important to me? Absolutely. There's not one single conversation about environmental, social, or governance that doesn't affect the women I work with, that doesn't affect the women who work for me, or that doesn't affect, the people that we're trying to elevate in the work that we do. So at Anita Erskine Media, even though my focus, or even though the tools of operation really are communications tools, or TV production tools, etc., we look at the people who are able to absorb it, the people to whom we're able to target, the kind of shows we develop, or the kind of products or services that we're able to put out there. I mean, when it comes to the environment, I look at it from the perspective of how conducive environments are for us to attend, for girls to be educated, how conducive environments are for women to pursue education. When I look at, governance, for example, I look at how many women locally here in Ghana, around the world, are able to, have access to the C-suite, as an example, and how many women are able to say, or how many companies are able to say that 50% of the senior executives in the C-suite are women. So these conversations are crucial to our well-being, well, not just well-being, are crucial to our existence. Again, Sustainable Development Goals, Goal 5 asks for gender equality, and we are guarded and guided. My company is guarded and guided by Goal 5, guarded and guided by Goal 4, quality education. So the conversation and the goals of ESG are crucial to our existence.
Yeah, and I want to pick up sort of something that Anita said probably maybe 10 minutes ago or 15 minutes ago about the with women, it's the confidence to lead. And that's what I talk about at OPG. The chair of our board is a woman. My number 2 chief operating officer is a woman. My chief administrative officer is a woman. My head of supply chain is a woman. My general counsel and head of regulatory is a woman. So in a way, part of this is having people like Anita that I think our younger girls, women can look up to and say, I can do it because Anita did it. I'm not, not in any way Anita is saying what you've done is easy, but to have women be able to look up and say, okay, it's all possible. It's going to be hard work. I have to work hard. I have to go to school. I have to do all the things that allow me to get there. And this is far, far more inspirational than programs that companies can run and these types of things. It's like anything. If you see someone who maybe looks like you, in a very senior position, in a very big policy position with government, you immediately assume that's just what can happen. That's just what the opportunity is. So, Anita, I'm going to start to use you as someone that I reference as someone who has done these amazing things, not just as a Trent alumni. So I'm going to brag about you from that regard, but as well, because I think it inspires people to say, great, I'll go do something amazing as well. And if that's a 12-year-old girl who sees it and goes, that's amazing, or if it's a 35-year-old woman who says, I can do more, then I think we've all done our part, and then we solve the equality thing way before anyone thinks we can. So, Anita, you're my inspiration to push this a little bit further than what I have.
Well, Ken, you certainly have an excited panel here. But when it comes to your work, how do you motivate employees?
Yes, so for me, it's really easy. It's sort of, to me, I always think from a company perspective, it's define a problem, challenge a group of people, and it's always teams. I think on any problem, you always have a team of people, but define the problem, challenge a group of people to solve the problem, and then get out of the way. Because what I find then is that the innovation of the individuals, of the team, are just accelerate, especially if you have a diverse team. It's diverse in skills, diverse in thought process, and then let innovation take over. I mentioned earlier, I don't think I've really solved any problem, but what I do is put teams in place that solve really complex ones. So to me, it's simple. Define a problem, challenge people to solve it, and then let them get to work. And I think people like sort of that type of environment where they get to be the team that has to solve something really complex. It's fun to do, and it's fun when you're successful.
And if you had asked me this question 2 years ago, pre-COVID, I would have said, give them good money, give them a nice package, give them more money, give them more days off. COVID helped me to see that people are inspired and motivated when you tell them that things will be okay. People are inspired and motivated when you show them the worst case scenario, show them the best case scenario, and then show them how committed you are to moving away from the worst case scenario with their help. People will stick with the plan. They will stick with the dream. If you believe in the plan, if you are committed to executing the plan, and if you continuously, consistently breathe, breathe the essence of the dream to them. And then ultimately, people are motivated when you give them a chance to tell them or ask them to show you what they would do to solve a problem. Everyone has everyone has an ego. And more importantly, everyone has a great idea. I want to believe that my team is motivated when I say, guys, on this one, I don't know what to do, but I think someone in this room can show us the right direction. Young or old, people want to be lifted. And that upliftment and that elevation will come if you show them that you do believe that you could literally dive right into their arms and they would catch you and they would solve that problem. So COVID-19 was a great platform, a great place to see how I motivate my team. I had to think outside the box. I had to think quickly. I had to readapt. Business was going downhill, but I had to think about what it is that I could do to keep our business afloat, what I could do to keep families fed, what I could do to keep people assured that COVID, here or not, they would remain employed. And what I did do was tell them the truth. Guys, we are in trouble, but each and every one of this room will work equally to get us out of trouble. And I do believe that's how they remained motivated till this very moment.
Thank you for that, Anita. And thank you both for joining us here today. It's been an honor and a privilege. You've been enjoying the 2022 Alumni Lecture with two of our 2021 Trent University Distinguished Alumni Award recipients. Again, congratulations to both Anita Erskine and Ken Hartwick. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the Trent University Alumni Association Volunteer Awards Committee and everyone who sent in nominations this year. Do you know an alum worthy of recognition? Please check out our awards page for information on how you can nominate alumni for awards. Visit www.trentu.ca/alumni and click on the My Trent Experience tab. Once again, I'm Donald Fraser. This has been the 2022 Alumni Lecture. For more news, information, and interviews, please visit the Trent Alumni page. And thanks for sharing your time with us.